there. Hello, hello. Happy Wednesday. Oh, what a fun topic. We're going to have some fun with this one today. We're going to talk about handling tough customers. So I'm Deputy Grote, CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching. I love this subject because I feel like the fine art of selling and communication, that's really what separates the super professional from the average agent who just kind of takes orders and does what the client requests. This is really, when you think about it, where the rubber meets the road, your ability to handle tough customers. So as we get going today, hey, please feel free. We'll try to save a little time at the end. If you have a tough customer and you can do it in a quick, few sentences, share with us what's your situation, what's your challenge. We'll do a little deal doctoring if we have time at the end. So please feel free to type in a challenge. And Ken, thank you so much for saying hello to all of us. That way we know you can all hear us loud and clear. So let's get started. So just again, quick hello. I won't take long on my bio. Most of you I know well. So Deputy Grote, CEO and co-founder of Forward Coaching. We're right here in Newport Beach, California. Right now I see our California followers are signing in, but usually we have people from all across the country. Hey, Tracy, good to see you there. And, every market is different. And yet, in most markets right now, what we're noticing here and what you're probably noticing in your market, people are a little stressed out, right? Sellers are not super excited about the price that they're able to achieve. Some are even a little bit angry that they can't have that aspirational price and multiple bids pouring in. So they get upset with you if their home is not selling quickly. Buyers, they're nervous and I see them being really demanding on requests for repair. So it just feels like deals are more complicated. And also in the past couple of years, the ratio of deals falling through dramatically higher than average, right? And so some of you have probably felt the pain of that. And of course, we know in any business, in sales, in operations, often when you look at the business side, the sales side, the operations side, there can be a lot of disconnect. So for an example, when you're interacting with staff that might be inside of your company, or might be your team operations person, or might even be your vendor or affiliate, right? All of those people do such different jobs, but it can be constant conflict if we're not careful. So while we're all working towards the same goal, a difference in focus can lead to misunderstanding and poor communication. So in this session, our goal is give you some tips to avoid communication breakdowns. So just think about it. When you add the normal stress of a real estate transaction, it can be a recipe for some very difficult negotiations. I often think of it like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. This perfectly nice person that lists their home with you, and then you're like, where did they go? How did they turn into this maniac that I'm now dealing with? Chris Voss, who wrote the book, Never Split the Difference. I love this quote from the book. He said, if you think your customer is crazy, most likely they aren't. Probably you just haven't figured them out yet. Now, if you have a chance to grab that book, Never Split the Difference, I think it's a great book, but I'll tell you what is even more my favorite. If you can find Chris Voss Master Class, I happened to be on a Delta flight, and in the different things that you could watch on the TV, they had, I think it was a 12-part master class. And each module was about 20 minutes long, and it was all dedicated to dealing with really high strung, difficult, argumentative customers. And so this was one of the things Chris said. And you know what was funny? It was not at all an educational series for real estate agents. It wasn't. But what he did say in the middle of it, he said, you know, or how do you put it? He said, real estate agents are some of the most stressful people on the planet because they have to deal with such a crazy business with so many emotions and drama. So, hey, it was his little shout out to all of you that what you do is not easy. So, step one in handling tough customers, walk a mile in their shoes and exercise patience. So, what I mean by that is, maybe I have to calm down when I'm feeling a little attacked by a buyer or seller, and I have to stop and think, wait a minute, this is the first home they've ever sold. Or, hey, they shared with me that the last real estate transaction that they did, it blew up. It was a disaster. The agent did a terrible job. So I think they're fearful. Or, hey, I have to stop and think about the fact that, they're making this big move. They're uprooting their family. They're heading to a new job. They don't know the area. They don't know if they're even going to like the job. So of course they're stressed out. Or another situation could be, they're thinking that if they sold their home a year ago, it would have been better, it would have been faster, they would have netted more, and they're very sad that they waited and they're distressed. So I think, while it sometimes feels very personal when they're attacking you, if we can just take a moment. Chris Voss says, that line where you say, I was seeing red, right? Where people make you so mad that you feel your blood pressure rising. He said, if you could just take a breath and visualize flat line on a heart monitor, just say, whoa, I got to calm down. I got to slow down. And I got to think about, where is this coming from? What is making them so upset? If I were them, would I potentially be feeling exactly the same way? I have a family member that lives out of state, and they live in a market that's pretty seasonal, and they've missed the season. But it was an opportunity for a job transfer. So they thought, gosh, we got to quickly put our home on the market. They put the home on the market. They had a short window to get it sold. And guess what? In 2 weeks, only one person looked at their home. So I'm hearing from them about how, oh my gosh, nobody's looking at the home. Nobody's even viewing it much online. Then the offer came in low. Then they took the offer. Then they wanted $100,000 to dig a new well, and the deal blew apart. Oh my gosh, they're distraught. And it really helps you remember, if we're going through it, somebody we love is going through it, it really helps us reconnect with how stressful these deals are. See, also, if you look at their personality style, it's going to give you some clues and cues to, I think of it as adjusting the thermostat of your approach. So while I may not exactly, when I say speak their language, so if they're a rocket scientist, I am not a rocket scientist, so I'm not going to really comprehend how triple high analytical they are. But just the fact that I know they're a very analytical person, I can think about, what data do I need to give? What words do I need to choose? Do I bullet point my email so that they feel more comfortable and it's easier for them to read and take it in? Let's say that they are an older couple and they're selling their home, their family home, and they're going to move to a retirement community. Well, I might have to consider that that age group, they do better if I go sit in front of them, if I meet with them instead of texting or emailing. Now, some are obviously perfectly tech savvy, but it doesn't mean that they wouldn't prefer that eye to eye or ear to ear. There are certain cultures that are very proud of the fact that they are a haggler and they will grind and they will negotiate. And we might look at that and say, that's annoying or that's weird or that's strange, but it's really not. It's just their culture. And then personality styles, are they analytical? Are they high I, very expressive, lots of drama? So we have to consider that as we communicate. And then deep down, what is their motivation? I often noticed that people like to hide their motivation from us. And I don't know why. If we're doing our best to try to help them, gosh, you would think, right, that they would just be honest about what they're trying to do and why they're trying to do it. But instead, they say things like, I don't have to move. I'm not in any hurry to buy. Well, I'm not going to give it away. And it's a little confusing. You're like, I'm trying to understand. Do you really want to do this or not? And that's why asking great questions, reading between the lines, looking for those answers, because honestly, if they're not motivated, guess what, guys? We can't want it more than they do. So I think about all these pieces like a puzzle. You get a puzzle in a box and you dump it out on the table, and all the pieces scatter. And you've got to take time and put those pieces together to get it right. I read something the other day. It was in a book about the brain and psychology and people and how they do what they do and how they're influenced. And I don't know if this is true or not, but you know what the book said? It said that studies show that 98% of the world prefers to be led, which means only 2% lead. And yet, when I go in a room and speak to great real estate agents, and I ask, do you take the contract with you? Only a few hands will go up. Most will say no. Or I might ask, when you're with a buyer or a seller, how do you get them to take the action to move forward? It's like, I don't know. I just ask them, what do they want to do? But unfortunately, sometimes they get stuck in their fear and hesitation, the hesitation of making a wrong decision. So I want you to think about it this way. Never would be my goal or intention for you to be a slimy, pushy salesperson. And quite frankly, today's consumers, they are way too savvy for that, right? They're not going to tolerate that. And yet, what we need to remember, they came to you for a reason. They came to you for help. They came to you for guidance. And if you're doing your business, as I'm sure you are, with great integrity, and you know that they qualify, or you know that this is the best offer they're likely to receive on their home, then it's up to you to guide them. So let's say, for an example, I'm sitting with Nina and I'm going over an offer on her home. And I know that we've been on the market 30 days. It's the only offer. It's a qualified buyer. And actually, it's a very decent offer. And I say, Nina, we're now 30 days in. This is our first and only offer. And my advice is if you would like your home sold today, then this is our next step. Or I might be sitting with a seller at a listing appointment and we've gone through a great presentation. Everything seems fine. We've discussed price. And instead of saying, what do you think? Or will you choose me? Something that sounds kind of weak and needy. Instead, I say, now that we know what it's going to be like to work together, we've chosen a price that we're in agreement on, then this is our next step to sign this very standard listing agreement so I can get to work for you and get your home sold to the right buyer who will pay the highest realistic price. I turn that listing agreement around and I hand them the pen and I shut up. But see, we need to tell them what is the next step. This is the next step. Here's the action we should take. If this is a home you love, we should start the negotiations, or what we should consider now is based on X, this is what we should do. So it might be based on the fact that you need the home sold this week. This is the only offer on the table. Then based on that, this is what we should do. Now, it might be we should counter, right? Or it might be based on the fact that this seller has come back way over what you're interested in paying with unrealistic terms, then we need to move on and let me find you another home. So remember, it's not always about at all pushing them into a deal. It's about owning that space as the wise advisor and guiding them to take the right steps. Now, you might often notice if we, role play scripts and things that I will often use the words we, us, or let's. So I might say, Mr. Seller, what we should do next. Or, let's consider this. Or, hey, it is a great house. I knew you'd love it. Let's take it. Let's buy it. And all of my years in the business, I've always thought, is a buyer or seller going to call me out on that and say, whoa, wait a minute, you're not buying the house with us? But you know what they don't? They just know how they feel. They feel like I'm on their side because they want you to be their champion. So then step number 2, work on your own mindset. I often, joke with some of our real estate clients that if they were a real estate social worker, in other words, they weren't getting paid at all for doing these real estate deals. They were a real estate social worker, just doing it to help. I think often you'd be stronger than you are in recommending actions to your people. I think where you get hung up is I don't want to seem like mercenary, right? Like I'm just in it for the money, or they're going to smell my commission breath. And I don't want to be all about just the money. But let's forget about the commission for a moment. And let's remember, as a professional, they came to you because they really need your help. So when you're faced with these tough situations, it's a challenge. And you got to look at that and say, I have to create and maintain rapport. I have to work to find a collaborative solution. In NLP and neuropersuasion, there's a thought that I've read often in many books, which is if trust and rapport does not exist, then persuasion is highly unlikely to occur. So, one of our biggest jobs is to establish and maintain rapport. And then part of it, though, too, is accepting the fact that not everybody we work with will want a relationship with us. So, they don't all want to be your friend. Let them set the tone for the relationship. However, even if they want to keep you at arm's length, maybe they want to have you working through their business manager, it doesn't change the fact that we still have to look for those opportunities to gain and build rapport. And there's a big difference between establishing a commonality and true rapport. So let me give you an example, just a simple one. So let's say that you went to someone's home today to list it, and you notice they have all kinds of cookbooks and pots and pans hanging on their walls. Like, you can tell they are really into cooking. Now, I'm into cooking too, so I could go there and say, "Oh, wow, you're totally into cooking. Hey, so am I. Oh, I see all your cookbooks. Oh, I have that one. Let me tell you which recipe I made last week. You will love it." But do you notice there's a lot of I going on? That establishing commonality is not bad. It's often, though, viewed by our prospects as our insincere attempt to build rapport. Now, once I win a relationship with that client or customer, hey, we can talk all day long about the things we have in common. But in that moment of winning that rapport, I should make it all about them. Wow, I see you have a lot of cookbooks. And I can tell by your kitchen, someone in this home is a chef. Is that you? Awesome. Well, I'm sure you're excited to tell me what is it you're looking for in the kitchen of the new home that we're going to find for you. And then I also want you to share with me, as we list your home today, what are the special features of this kitchen that I need to highlight? See, all about them. So just remember, let them take the lead. Some will want a closer relationship, some will not, and yet we still have to work to find that bridge of rapport. And then it'd be nice if all our deals were problem free. I guess that would be called heaven. I don't know. That would be great. But we just have to accept the fact tough situations are going to happen. Deals are going to fall out. We can only do so much to protect them from the outcome. Real estate carries risk. You may feel terrible that a client you sold a home to a year ago, and they were counting on high appreciation, and suddenly they got transferred. They weren't planning on it, and they cannot sell their home for what they paid, and you feel bad. Well, it's great that you have empathy for them. It's great that you care about them, but you cannot own that responsibility because they are adults. They made a decision. We can't control the market. I remember one that was super painful, a really sweet elderly lady, and her husband, after many, many years of marriage, did some fraudulent things to borrow all the money out of their house, which was free and clear, borrowed all the money out of their house and took off, signed her name, forged it, and gone. And the house went into foreclosure. And she had a little bit of equity left. Oh, gosh, guys, I tell you, I put that thing on the market and I sold it 3 times. Every time it fell out. Almost at closing, it fell out. Every time it was like it was cursed. I was losing my mind. And I remember going to my broker and being very upset that, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for her. This is terrible. He said, well, first of all, You got to remember, you did not tell her, you didn't even know her, you didn't tell her to buy a house that was in one of the worst locations in the neighborhood, literally with the freeway overpass looming over it. You did not tell her to do some of the things they did to the house that have made it less attractive. You did not tell her to be completely uninvolved in the finances to the point that not only did she not know he took the money out of it, she didn't even know that the home was in foreclosure. He's like, she's a grown-up woman. It's a tough life situation. Do your best to help her. Now, we eventually got it sold and closed, thank goodness. But I always remember him helping me understand that I can't take full responsibility for things that I cannot control, right? And sometimes we just have to accept the fact that no matter how hard you work, maybe because the deal got ugly, wasn't your fault, but it got ugly and they blame you. Or maybe they just aren't nice people and nothing you could do could please them. Just accept the fact that you may never end up wanting to work with some of them again, right? Doesn't change the fact that we're going to do our best. We hope that they'll be a client for life, which means that sometimes when they throw a fit, when they are aggressive, we have to be ready to take a verbal punch and come back in a confident way. Now, that doesn't mean scary, verbally abusive. Like if you really feel worried that somebody is really actually crazy, go get somebody to help you. But I'm just talking about day-to-day stress of the deal. And you can be strong and you can be confident without being harsh or argumentative. So that's the bottom line. Flatline the emotion, take the high road, look to understand, and try to diffuse the emotion the best that you can. A couple of techniques in that master class that just came into my mind that Chris Voss shared. One of them he calls, what did he call it? Labeling. So I'll give you an example. He said, if somebody, let's say they call you and they're just going crazy and I can't believe my house hasn't sold. This is awful. This is ridiculous. And you say, you know what? Gosh, Nicole, I can tell you are incredibly frustrated. That's labeling, right? So I'm labeling Nicole's emotion. And what Chris Voss said is you'll notice instantly, almost like letting the air out of a balloon, it will deflate quite a bit, not all the way, but it will deflate that emotion. Why? Because they feel heard, right? So labeling, write that technique down, guys. It's awesome. So few takeaways. I want you to think flat line on the heart monitor. I'm not going to escalate my anxiety. I'm not going to be harsh. I'm not going to be argumentative. I'm going to flatline those emotions. I'm going to be the calm, cool head in the deal. Number two, I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to walk a mile in their shoes. Number three, if they're upset, I'm going to label that so that they know I'm hearing it and they calm down. There was another technique he called mirroring, which we often talk about mirroring and matching, but this was a little different. So if they said something like, I can't believe the home hasn't sold. I can tell you're really frustrated. Let's talk about it. Well, I think I'm just going to take it off the market. Take it off the market? So see, he just mirrors back what they said with a little upswing, like a little question. Take it off the market. Well, yeah, because it's not selling. It's not selling. Well, no, and I have to move. I need to be there in 30 days. Need to be there in 30 days. Yeah, so I guess we better adjust the price. It's like so weird. He role played this, and it was so, he did it with people who didn't know he was doing it with them, like real life situations. And just three, four, five mirroring comments in, you could suddenly see them self realizing what they needed to do. So, flatline your emotions. That's the most important thing. Calm, cool head in the deal. Remember, your goal is maintain rapport with all sides and just accept the fact they, whoever they are, the other agent, and Michaela, I'll come to your question in a second, the other agent, the vendors, the affiliates, the buyers, the sellers, just accept the fact they won't always behave well. So, step 3, and then we're going to go to questions in the chat box. So, feel free to type your tough situation in there. I will save some time for you. Techniques to improve communication. We've already said persuasion won't occur without rapport. So, some simple steps to maintain rapport. You can mirror and match their rate of speech, asking great questions about things that really matter to them. Acknowledge and approve. Practice active listening. So, reading between the lines, and remember, always going 3, 4, 5 clarifying questions deep before you respond. That way, you're sure you're really addressing their concern. So, one more fun Chris Voss technique, the late night DJ voice. So, Chris Voss says that when people's minds are in turmoil, that you talking fast, you saying a lot of words, your voice being elevated, escalated, that it'll just confuse the situation even more. So, what he recommended is you use the late night DJ voice. You're calm, you're level, you're matter of fact, and it just soothes them enough to hopefully listen. But we got to be careful. Sometimes when we ask questions, because we know that's a great way to build rapport, it can sound a little judgmental. So if you have to move, why aren't you adjusting the price? Instead of, I'm curious, because you have to move, what's stopping us from making the adjustment today? Well, if you love the home, I don't understand why you won't buy it. Clearly, you love the home. So this is our next step. This is what we need to do. Right? So just watch that tonality of judgment come from curiosity, and always think about language of agreement. Things like, if I were you, I would feel exactly the way you do. That's a great statement to maintain rapport. I remember once a for sale by owner that was yelling at me on the phone. He said, I would never list with an agent. You're all just a bunch of idiots. I don't think you earn your money. And I said, it sounds like you had a bad experience. He said, yes, I did. I had a horrible agent. And he went on to tell me, and I said, you know what? If I were you, I would feel exactly the way you do. Now, I'm not saying I agree with him that all of us are idiots. I'm just saying if I'm walking a mile in his shoes, in his situation, if I were him, I'd feel exactly the way he does, because that's how he feels, right? And I even said to him, you probably should feel sorry for me, because I have to work with a lot of those agents that are not super professional. But thank goodness in our industry, there are plenty who are. And I'm one of those. And I'd love to see your home. He actually did let me in. I don't remember what happened. If I ever ended up listing it, I don't remember. But I just remember I got in the door. So labeling, we talked about that. I can hear that you're very frustrated. You're basically labeling that emotion. And then you're eliminating any argumentative words. But is an argumentative word. I hear what you're saying, but here's the thing. You know what I did? I just said, but you're wrong. So instead, I could say, I hear what you're saying, and here's something we could take a look at. Or when I say, why are you saying that? That leads to excuses or arguments. So instead, use the word what. I like to say, what's stopping us? What can we do to move forward? So, and instead of but, and what instead of why. So if you have to shut them down hard, always offer an option. I cannot do that. However, here is what I can do. I'll give you an example, and I'm not talking about commission percentage. We're not going to have that discussion. We're not supposed to anymore. However, we all have the right to decide what we feel our services are worth. So let's say that a seller is being aggressive and they're wanting a very, very low fee, and it's not something I'm willing to do. I can say, Mr. Seller, I can appreciate you asking. If I were you, I probably would be asking the same question. And I cannot do that. However, here is what I can do instead, right? So if I'm going to shut it down, I want to give them also an option or a way to save face. It's important to always allow them to save face. So let's say a seller says to me, I don't have to sell. I'll just take it off the market. I can appreciate that, and I'm glad that you have that option. If I may share with you, though, some data, I think you're going to understand why it could be in your best interest to go ahead and take the steps and sell the home now. And I'm going to go through that data with them. And then I can say, now that you've reviewed the data, would you agree that it makes sense? Well, yeah, sure. Now that I've reviewed the data. See, I always want to give them a way to save face. And just keep in mind, if it takes more than 2 simple emails to solve a problem, you need to pick up the phone, right? And I want you to remember that when you're handling a tough, emotionally fraught situation, whether it's the buyer, the seller, the agent, whoever you're dealing with, a long, rambling email with lots of emotion in it is going to do a lot of damage. And the thing about an email and a text that I kind of hate in a tough situation, they can't read your tonality. And so the words can sound a little harsher than you meant them, and they're going to read them over and over again. So you got to be really careful because your words could really fire them up. So don't push send, let it sit there for a minute, even step away, come back and reread it, because man, once it's out there, it's out there. And then just flatline your emotions. Keep your ego out of it. Remember, again, you're the calm, cool head in the deal. And guys, I get it. It's hard to do when you're under attack. Just always remind them, I'm on your side. I know this is difficult. I know this is stressful. I'm on your side. We will figure this out together, because I think it's common that they start to try to negotiate with you, and that really creates an adversarial relationship. So just do everything you can with anyone you're working with to leave every interaction on a positive note. But if you get to a point where you just feel like it's not worth my time, they are not worth my energy, this is such a negative drain on me, guess what, guys? It's okay to walk away. what's the old Kenny Rogers song? You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. And you could even do that graciously. Gosh, Mr. Seller, I can tell you're just not happy with my service. Everything I've tried to do for you is not acceptable. You deserve to have what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and let you out of our agreement and let you go find someone who is totally available to take your midnight phone calls, because that is not me. And I'm going to let them go, right? I always felt like probably once or twice a year, there was somebody I probably should fire. Okay. So, guys, I'm going to go to the chat box now. So, if you have a question or a situation, type it in. For those of you who might need to run, mark on your calendar, watch for our invite November 6th. So, next week at 11 a.m. Pacific, we have our, I don't really call it business planning, it's more kickoff of the year ahead. We're going to talk about things you need to know to navigate the market ahead, how AI is going to play into your business, just all kinds of interesting things as you put your plan together. So please be sure to attend that. And then if you're at a point where you feel to get yourself ready for the year ahead, you do need coaching, scan that QR code. One of my guys, Ron and Gary, will reach out, talk to you about what you'd like my help with, take some notes, get you ready, and help you get set to speak to me. So I'm so glad you were here today. Such a good topic. Okay, so Nina said, I can really relate. My buyers blew a fuse. Yes, listening, really listening, right, Nina? And the clarifying question, I feel like that's our friend, because it helps you scuba dive on an issue and really gain a deeper understanding. And the great news about clarifying questions, you don't have to pre-script them, right? You're just going a little deeper, a little deeper, a little deeper until you understand the situation. Wow, Clay, 6 years to get a seller to list. Wow. And it's funny, with all the great technology we have today. In fact, one of the CRMs I happen to know well, just because my business partner, Ben Kinney, owns it, which is Brivity CRM. There's so many nurture campaigns, and I'm sure your CRM has them as well, where we can meet someone and pretty effortlessly put them into that CRM, send them items of value, as Clay did probably for 6 years, show up in informational articles, giving them market reports, listing alerts, really showcasing that, hey, I'm here and I'm patient and I'm willing to help you when you're ready. It's easy, right? We automate it, because whether you need a customer today or 6 months from now or 2 years from now, yes, yes, and yes, right? We want to take care of them and we want to shine as the clear choice to do business with. If you're new in the business, I think the last thing I would leave you guys with today is, remember, if you plan to be in this business for a long time, treat the agents in your community well. Be kind, be helpful, be respectful. Don't be that agent that's difficult to work with, because these people will become your friends and they will be the ones that say, yes, I would love to present your offer to my seller. So calm, cool head, flatline those emotions, and I look forward to talking to you guys again soon. So thank you for joining me. Hey, by the way, have a happy Halloween. I know that's coming soon. All right, guys, talk to you next week. Bye-bye.